everyone, welcome back to episode 6 of The Lighthouse. My name is Antonia and I'm joined here with Hannah and we are your hosts for today. The Lighthouse is our way of bringing God's light into your home. So we hope everyone's doing well. We hope everyone's staying in touch with their friends in these times. We know here in Australia, we are actually very lucky to have coronavirus kind of fade away a bit for a couple of months, and we've been getting back into contact with our family and our friends. But for those of you overseas, we are thinking of you and we hope you're doing well even in this really rough time. And we just want to say thank God for technology, because without that we would have no contact with people, our friends, our family, our partners. We're really looking forward to you tuning into our episode today, and we hope that whatever we have here, our guests planned today, it brings you some sort of comfort in these times as well, because it's really crazy. And we'll just get into our episode now.
And before our special guest joins us, I know we've all been excited for the next episode of The Avengers, so here's episode 6.
What types of human experiences are there? I stared at these words written across the blackboard in my English class. These words awakened the memories of an experience I wish I didn't have. You see, I was brought up in a Christian school, and I was always rowdy, rambunctious, and a whole lot of trouble. I was like the black jelly bean in the packet of red. You could definitely spot me, but you didn't want me. As the school bell rang, the students hurried to the basketball court or into their little groups scattered around the playground. Whisperings of my past floated through the air like autumn leaves. I never had many friends that were dear to me. When I finally did find a companion, they would sadly have to move schools or something, and I was back to where I started. It sometimes felt like I was undergoing this trial by myself. I would come home to what is supposed to be a haven and take it out on the only people left that seemed to love me over the years. I would constantly argue and play word ping pong to save myself from having to explain what has been going on lately. I was always the outsider. To become the main point of conversation or achieve those couple of seconds of fame, I would rebel in ways others did not have the guts to try. I jumped off tables, made teachers reach the brink of a heart attack, and challenged the record for school suspension. In my young mind, that was what had to be done. I did not realize the kids were laughing at me. The years went by and my audience became my bullies. I was looked down upon, gossiped about, pushed around and made fun of. I was the go-to person to make you feel better. I was a human punching bag. Over time, I joined the enemies and began to hurt myself too. It was the only way of feeling something, and the only satisfaction I could get. Voices haunted my thoughts. What do I have to live for? Even after I leave the school, would I really escape this? The thoughts ran circles around my head. I felt like they were about to choke me. Then I remembered the story I was told as a child. Of the man who was tortured and persecuted for someone else's mistake, for everyone else's mistakes. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. This man not only carried their crimes, but also asked for their forgiveness. These words became my escape. I decided to become like my hero and put on his armor. To believe in God is not to believe you will have no trials, but that you will not be left defenseless. I believe that I was put through this trial, so I could share my story to the world. I believe in His forgiveness.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you enjoyed episode 6 of The Avengers. Please stay tuned for the next episodes to see what happens next. Today again, we have Mimi here with us. Hi, Mimi.
Hi.
And she's going to be talking to us about our relationship with the saints. So take it away, Mimi.
Great. So I'll talk about two things when it comes to relationship with the saints. First point is why bother with the relationship with the saints? And second point is practically what do I do? So why bother with the saints? I guess we need to divide it into two parts. One is, are the saints really alive or not in heaven? And the second point is, do I believe they care enough to help me? So do we believe that the saints are alive in heaven? Yes. My advice is go and read 1 Corinthians chapter 15. It talks about resurrection. Because this church had a problem at a point in time where they did not believe in resurrection. They thought nobody's going to be resurrected at the end. So St. Paul writes to them very strongly and tells them, if Christ is not risen, your faith is futile, you are still in your sins. So those who have fallen asleep will rise again. It's very clear in there. And St. Paul also in the book of Hebrews calls it a cloud of witnesses around us. When he talks about faith, the famous chapter about faith, he says, by faith Abraham did this, by faith Moses did that. And at the end, the following chapter, he says, we have all of these as a cloud of witnesses for us. So we believe that they are alive and in heaven and they can hear us. Now, the second question is, do they care enough to bother with us? And for me, it's a point about love. They love us, and we know that, again, St. Paul says, now abide faith, hope, love, but these three, but the greatest of these is love. So they obviously, there is a lot of love in heaven. So if there's a lot of love, then they must care about us enough to love us and to care about us. In the famous parable of Jesus with the rich man and Lazarus, if you remember that parable, what happens is that Lazarus was staying in front of the rich man's house, and the rich man never gave him anything. And eventually Lazarus died and the rich man died, and they both go up, one goes to hell and one goes to heaven. And there's a big gap between the rich man in hell and the Lazarus, and there in the bosom, Lazarus is in the bosom of Abraham, and he tells him, please send people to warn. The rich man tells him, please send people to warn my brothers and sisters that are on earth, which means that the rich man, even though he's in hell and he's under a lot of pressure, he's still thinking about what's happening to the rest of my family down on earth. So obviously they understand what we're going through, and there's a connection there. And the simplest examples that I would say is, if your earthly friends and parents and family bother with you and care enough for you to help you, why wouldn't your friends in heaven? It sounds very obvious to me. Logically, if I have a dear friend in a high place, like let's say if my friend is a minister or prime minister, and if I need something, I will go and say, can you help me with this? Because he's capable and he's willing, because he loves me. So obviously it makes sense. If we ask normal people to pray for us, even in the book of James, it says, confess your trespasses to one another and pray for one another. So why can't we believe that the saints are alive for us to pray with us and pray for us? So that's pretty much the sort of why bother, because they're there, they're alive, they're in heaven, they care for us, and they're capable. They are very capable to help us. So why? The second question is, practically, what do I do? I think there are many things, and everybody has a different way of celebrating and building a relationship with the saints. It's like a relationship in a sort of, if you're dating someone. The first step is to get to know that person. So you would go out with that person, you would say, how are you? What have you been doing? And it's the same. The first step, if you want to get close to a saint, is just know them, know their story, know what happened to them, know when they were born, what happened in their life. Just get to know them. And then try and do things where you involve them. So you might say, I'm going to ask for their intercession. Every time I pray, I say, please, through the intercessions of St. Mark, help me with this or do that. So ask for their intercession daily. I think when it's their feast day, celebrate their feast day. When I've got someone that gave me this idea, which is lovely. So allocate a day of the week to each saint. So you might say Monday is always Philopatir's day, Tuesday is St. Mina, and they always help me on that day. So when I come, I say, oh, Wednesday it's St. George. St. George, can you please help me today? You might allocate subjects if you're studying. So you might say, okay, I'll give this subject to Pope Krollos. Or you might say, I'm going to allocate a project if I'm working. So this is a big project. I'm going to give it to a certain saint. So just involving them in your day-to-day life helps build that relationship, and it continues to flourish across life.
Yeah. So just going back to that point you said of the intercession of the saints, what would you say to people who don't believe in the intercession of the saints?
Yeah. Well, intercession is biblical. If you look at what happened with Abraham and God when Sodom and Gomorrah was going to be destroyed. So in that example, God goes to Abraham and tells him something that nobody else knows. Because Abraham is very close to God. And he tells him, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham intercedes on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he tells them, no, but if you find 50 people, if you find, 10 people, if you find... So he is interceding on behalf. And God is willing, I dare say, willing to change his mind for the sake of the person that is interceding, and for the sake of the good people that are in the city. Yeah. So intercession is a common sort of thing in the Bible. Another good example is when St. Mary intercedes in the wedding of Cana of Galilee. So she comes and says, they have no wine. Well, somebody else could have asked. Probably Jesus would not have responded, because when he told her, my time is not come. But she tells him, almost looks at him, and she tells the servants, whatever he tells to you, do it.
Yeah.
So he responds to St. Mary. St. Mary, his mother. Who doesn't respond to his mother? If you're close to your mother, you will respond to her. So the concept of intercession is pretty common. The problem is we're not used to it. We don't use it enough, but it is definitely available at our hands.
And what would you say about particular feast days? Are there certain things that we need to do on those days?
Look, different people do different things. So some people, they would decide to put some money or buy some candles or anything, or do the hymn of that saint. Any celebration is a good celebration. So choose something that is close to your heart and do it. If you're the type of person that likes tasbihah and likes singing, then maybe it's a song. If you're the person that, what you'll do is just send a picture of the saint on WhatsApp to your friends and say, guys, today is the feast of Saint Anthony. Remember, okay? That might be a thing. Other people do other things. I know, for example, one of my boys was born the following day of Saint Anthony's feast, and we ended up calling him Anthony. So we love that name, and we love Saint Anthony. So anything to celebrate that saint, do it. As long as you do it from the heart, because they can sense whether we're doing it out of, okay, let me just do it, or really I love that saint and I want to do something for him.
Yeah, you want to celebrate.
Yeah. Before you mentioned how you offer a project to one of the saints, and I know that there are saints that have different purposes, like one's for the eyes, one's for the legs, or something like that. So if you're offering a project to any saints, do they have the same power in each thing?
Yeah. Look, all saints are very powerful. Of course, the closer you are to God, like if you ask St. Mary, of course, like she's the closest. So obviously, the closer you are to God, the I don't want to say, but the more powerful you are.
Yeah.
But generally, and they always say some saints have got certain strengths. Like they say, for example, Saint Juanas finds the lost things, okay, or Saint George responds very quickly. But I think at the end of the day, you build the relationship with the saint that you feel closest to. Like if you really love Saint George or love Saint Anthony, then ask for their help all the time, because you build that relationship across the time, rather than look at who's the most powerful. I know someone that whenever he does any carpentry job, asks for Saint Joseph the carpenter because he thinks that he's going to help him, and he does. So it's what you think is right based on what you love.
Yeah. And also, just another question. I know that there are people who they tend to, when they start believing in the saints and praying to the saints, they do it more so than to Jesus and to Mary. What would you say to those people, and for this subject in particular?
We need to be very careful, because at the end of the day, we're praying to Jesus through the intercessions of. Because some people, unfortunately, get so stuck on miracles, for example, like, oh, all these miracles, let me focus on the miracles. I know at a point in time, a long time in Egypt, there was a lady that was dripping oil in a church, and she would sit at the back of the church, and the Holy Communion is happening, and the Mass is happening, and people are leaving Holy Communion and the Mass and focusing on her, and it ended up that she has a devil on her. So a bishop actually came and expelled the devil, and she stopped, because she's taking the attention from God because of miracles. So we need to be very careful that we're not running after miracles, because it is very easy to say, okay, look at all these miracles and it's nice and I want to have a miracle. But for us, we live by faith as well. There's an element of, okay, if a miracle happens, great. If it's not God's will for a miracle, then that's okay. I still love God, and I'm not praying. I'm asking for the intercession of the saint, but at the end of the day, it's God that I'm worshiping. And that's a very fine line, because you can be so obsessed with that saint to the extent that you forget to pray, or forget to have Holy Communion. Then what's the use? It doesn't replace.
Yeah, I really like that point, that we are worshipping God in the end. Do you have any favorite stories about a saint?
Okay, let me think. I heard this one by Father Mark just a few weeks ago, and he was talking about intercessions of saints as well. And when he was in year 10, he got a lesson in Sunday school about choosing a saint and making sure that you have a favorite saint. And he went home, and he thought maybe Pope Krollos is the one that I'm going to sort of have as my friend. And then he ended up, that night he dreamt of Pope Krollos. He dreamt of him, and he woke him up and he prayed with him at night in the dream. And then I think it was, I can't remember exactly, but probably Pope Krollos' feast. So he went to the church the following week or day, I can't remember exactly, but he was told to carry the icon of Pope Krollos. Like, out of all the people in the church, he was given that. So I thought, what a weird coincidence. I think he's telling me that, he wants to be my friend. And then the following year, he also went into the church, and he got the same icon of Pope Krollos to carry it. And he thought, this is very, very weird. It can't happen two years in a row. So the third year, he decided to hide in the altar, so that nobody sees him, that he's there, because he said, if they can't see me, then they can't give me the icon of Pope Krollos. And it happened again the third year that somebody came into the altar and told him, come and carry the icon of Pope Krollos. They picked him, they looked for him and picked him up. I don't know how, not the same deacon, obviously, but somehow this happened. So you just think, okay, that is really, it can't be a coincidence that all this happens. So I found this is a very nice story. Another story that I just heard, that I had personally a couple of months ago. I was at Byron Bay, and we have a relatively small 4-wheel drive. So we were on the beach with the, on the sand with the car, and it got stuck in deep sand.
Oh no.
And of course, my dear husband decided that he's going to start the car, and I'm going to push the car. And it's still a big car for me, and I'm not the healthiest person.
You push and he starts.
Yes, and he starts the car because he's trying to maneuver it in a way to make it like, push it really hard, as if, And then, and literally we're stuck. We have to leave because I have another appointment. I actually had an interview, and I needed to be back very quickly. And I was starting to panic. And I pushed, and nothing's happening. Like, it's getting deeper into the sand, because the more you turn the tires, the more it's just getting stuck in there. So all what came to me is, Ya Adra, like Virgin Mary, and the loudest voice, Ya Adra, Ya Adra, Ya Adra. And a few times, and it just, boop, and it went off, and we moved out of the sand. So it was like, oh, that's very nice.
She listened to you.
So it works. When you're really desperate, I think it works. So these are just a couple of stories that heard or I've experienced, but there are many, many stories, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mimi, again for teaching us so much about the saints, and especially with coincidence, maybe not a coincidence, but God working. Well, that was the end of another episode.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed it, and thank you, Mimi, again. And if you have any coincidences that are happening, or if you're looking forward to researching about the saints, please do that, because you never know who could be giving you signs or anything. If you have any questions, please comment down below. We'll be sure to get back to you. And also, we have an email. It's lighthousecyc@gmail.com. You can send us any questions there, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you. Good night.